There we go. Okay. Hey, you guys, good evening. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. The other thing I was going to say is that we are having a wellness chat this Thursday evening. It's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. I think Pacific time. And so we are going to have some graphics floating around for that. So make sure you invite your potentials, your people who have been skeptical or on the fence maybe for a while, invite them to that. And we'll have some different content for that. I am doing like a little hocus pocus theme. Is this all just a bunch of hocus pocus as a theme? And I'm just going to kind of debunk some of the myths that people think about plexus or say about plexus or have maybe even heard about plexus before. So I think it's going to be a fun, different take on the 15-minute messenger chat events that we have on Thursday evenings. And also you'll be able to invite people who have been to other Thursday night events because this content will be different. So it won't be repetitive. You can go back to those people for that. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We have a special guest tonight. Her name is Kayla. Kayla is my cousin. She married my cousin. So now she's my cousin about a year ago. And she has just become so special to us and in our lives. And when she reached out to me about plexus, I really didn't know much of her history and what she had like been through health-wise because we'd only known each other for probably a year at that point, not too long, maybe a year and a half at that point. And so it was a conversation we'd never really had before. And I didn't realize how much she had been through with her health. And so I was obviously super excited that she was open to using plexus. And I was like, please let this work for her. Please let this be the thing for her. And so I'm going to let her share her health testimony with you guys. Kayla, do you want me to pull up like the PowerPoint right away, or is there a certain point? Oh, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. She's like the most organized person I've ever met. So she put together a PowerPoint so you guys have a visual, which I absolutely love. Let's make sure. Can you guys see this?
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. All right, go ahead, Kayla.
So, like Brooke was saying, I am married to Justin, her cousin, and actually Kyle married us. I'm a speech language pathologist, and I've been doing that for 3 years. But diving into my health background, I'm going to try to block this light. Sorry, guys. I started having autoimmune problems when I was in 5th grade, but I didn't know I was having autoimmune problems until 8th grade. And so I've just been going to doctor after doctor after doctor, and no one really knew what my problem was. And so they just slapped a title on it and started giving me medication that didn't work. And then fast forward, it's been like 10 years in the making, trying to find stuff that worked. I got under a whole new set of doctors after trying what seemed like a bazillion, but it was probably only 5 or 7. And so I was starting to really get a grasp on understanding my body, understanding what was possibly going on that made me feel sick 100% of the time, and always tired, in pain in places I didn't even know you could have pain. I had always had headaches. Then when it turned into migraines, I was like, whoa, this is not going great for me. And of course, being in a really hard grad program, all of my health issues just got worse and worse and worse to the point I was just in like survival mode. How I got through grad school, I'm not really sure because I was a hot mess in every form of that. I stayed tired all the time. I looked forward to the next time I could come back to my apartment and take a nap. I even felt like that after I started my career, and it was like, okay, just get to lunch. Okay, just get to the ride home. Okay, just get home and take a nap and then do whatever you have to do. My weekends consisted of trying to capture as much sleep and rest as I possibly could because the week completely drained me and I was unable to do anything extra than just doing what I had to do. And that's no fun because when you're young and wanting to have a social life, there's always that battle between, am I going to pay for this and is it worth it? Or do I just go do it and pay the consequences later? So I was always in that struggle between what I feel like doing and what I don't feel like doing. So I was watching Brooke's stories and social media posts for probably, I mean, we started dating like in 21. So I contacted her probably about that time in 23 this year. So for about a year and a half or more, I just saw Brooke's posts and even some of Kyle's too. And just seeing like, what's this mystery stuff, this pink drink or these supplements. And so just a little background of the medications I was previously on was Plaquenil, which is a rheumatoid arthritis medication, um, a migraine medication. I was on like a preventative one, and then I had an emergency rescue medication for if I was getting breakthrough migraines. And then I was on gabapentin, which is a nerve pain medication. So I was like, Brooke looks so good and she has so much energy for how many kids she has and just always on the go. I'm like, I want some of that. Whatever that is, I want that. So I just reached out to Brooke after I saw some pictures I did not like of myself, and I've never had that feeling really. So if you want to just click through to the next one. These top pictures here, the first one where I have the lanyard around my neck, I was in my first year of grad school, which was not going great health-wise for me. I was pushing through a trip for a conference that was over 3 days. It was a really grueling trip for me, trying to keep up with grad school work, trying to enjoy the conference, and still just trying to survive. The next picture is right after I finished my clinical fellowship, which was my first year working. And you just see a ton of inflammation. And then this last picture was like this early spring. And I was like, who is that girl? So just from that picture was right after Easter, I think, to May is when I started taking my Plexus supplement system, which is Triplex, Nerve, and Ease for me. And Nerve was the most recent one I just added maybe like a month and a half or 2 months ago. And I am completely off of my nerve pain prescription medication. I'm off of my migraine medication. Occasionally, I might need to take a Tylenol if I get just a breakthrough or the start of a migraine feeling, but that's super rare and inconsistent now for me, which is a welcome change because I was getting migraines at least once a week and really bad headaches all the other times. Like I lived without knowing what not having a headache felt like. And then these other pictures are more recent of me, and it's just a testament to show like what the inflammation was doing to my body. And I just felt bloated and my gut health was always a mess. I felt sick every time I ate. And now that's not the case. And I look forward to eating now and not worrying about those consequences of like, oh, am I going to pay for this later? Keeping up with weekend plans. And I mean, my job is pretty grueling from mornings with hospital care or early on to my afternoons with kiddos and speech therapy. Like, sure, it looks like playing, but a lot of up and downs and stuff that I was having a hard time doing. So, the quality of life has surely improved. So you can hit the next one and I can wrap up soon. So overall, I've noticed a huge change in my inflammation, my pain. Sure, I still have those instances where I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely have some health stuff still going on, but it's not a constant reminder of I'm 28 years old and feeling like I am stuck in an 80-year-old's body. I have far fewer headaches and migraines. I don't know the last time I had a migraine. And now most of the time my headaches are more like spurred on. Maybe I didn't drink enough water, or I walk into a smell that just like triggers those headaches that I used to have more frequently. My energy levels are so much better. My digestion, like I said, I can eat without feeling like I'm going to throw up right after, which that had been going on for years. And with all my other health issues, I just chose to ignore that aspect because I didn't want to add another doctor to my already long list of them. So I just chose not to acknowledge it when I definitely should have years ago and maybe made this a little bit better for myself. And then I've just gotten better with my routine for taking my supplements. Obviously, a changed habit takes a while, but rarely miss them. And then for sure, Justin keeps me accountable. He's like, did you take your medicine tonight? And it's like, yeah, I did, or no, I didn't. And he forces me to get it down if I'm like half asleep in bed already. And then the only regret I have is not starting it sooner, but I guess it takes trying it for yourself and becoming a believer and seeing social media posts like that was what was eye-opening for me, and seeing those like checklists of, do you struggle with this or do you experience that? Like that's what pulled me in. So
Yay. Thank you so much, Kayla. When like Kayla started first started using her Plexus, and she would text me her wins, and I would just like get goosebumps and tears in my eyes because of everything that she'd been through and all the medications and doctor's appointments and just how life-changing it's been for her. And I still feel that way whenever you share your story, and like hearing it all together is just so cool. Kayla, you guys, had started sharing on her social media a little bit about it. She got her first customer the other day who's ordering Nerve from her. So congratulations to Kayla. She truly just has a heart for like not wanting other people to feel the way that she felt and wanting to help them feel better too. Like I know a lot of us can relate to. So I was like, I know that I need you to share the next time that I'm in charge of a Zoom, because your testimony is so powerful. So many people dealing with just like mystery symptoms and medications on top of everything. Just wanting them to know that there is hope. So thank you so much, Kayla. I appreciate that. Kayla, you are welcome to hop off. I'm going to do a little bit of business training. You're also welcome to stay on. So whichever way will not think is rude. So you're welcome to do whichever. I am going to transition you guys into, let me see. Okay, talking a little bit more about the business. I wanted to share with you guys a training that we received actually in Mayakoba. It was from the author, Phil Jones. He's the author of Exactly What to Say, and you've probably heard Plexus promoting this book before. They've had him like do, I think, book studies for us, and he also, can't remember if he shared somewhere else or he's going to be sharing somewhere else, but he was a phenomenal speaker. And there were just some things that he shared that I was like, I feel like everybody on our team needs to hear that. They need to know that. And this applies to like all aspects of our life, to be honest. If you guys wouldn't mind, or if you're able to, could you comment in the chat? What would you say are some words that describe a stereotypical salesperson? What are some words that describe a stereotypical salesperson? Why? There's my chat. I'm like, where's the chat? Annoying, pushy. Anybody else? Fake. Yep. Talkative. Can relate. Yep. Selfish. So a lot of the same things that when we were in Mayakoba, the room of jewels of us were all said the same similar things, like pushy, sleazy, slimy, desperate, aggressive, annoying. Some people even said like liar. So not great descriptive words of a stereotypical salesman. But what if I asked you to give me some words to describe a professional salesperson? What words would you use to describe a professional salesperson? Anything different? Genuine. Yep. Invested. Those are good ones, Jamie. Confident, listens, listener. Respectful. Yep. A lot of the same ones that we listed too. Engaging. Isn't that so interesting, you guys? So we can take a couple of lessons from this. But it's really interesting that the first lesson that we can take away from this is that being a salesperson isn't a bad thing. Okay. It's the perception of being a salesperson that's a bad thing. It's not the being a salesperson. Both of those were salespeople. It was the perception of being a salesperson that's a bad thing. The second lesson that we can take from this, though, is that one word can make a huge difference, right? One word comes with lots of different meanings. When we changed one word from stereotypical to professional, you guys changed all the words that you were given to me about that person. And we saw a completely different image in our minds of who that person was and what we were describing. And so what we can take away from that is that maybe in our conversations that we're having with people about plexus, or even in life in general, is that maybe the other person just doesn't see what you're saying and they have a different picture in their mind about the same things that we're talking about. They just have a different picture in their head. And maybe what they see about what you're saying is more important than what you actually said. Maybe we can change some of the ways that we say things, even changing like one word or two words here and there can make a huge difference in the conversations that we're having with person. Okay, here's another question for you guys. Are salespeople born or made? What do you think? Are salespeople or salesperson, are they born or made? Made. Nobody wants to answer. I get it because it's like a tricky question. Okay, made. Everybody says made, which is so interesting. And I like, that was my answer also. Sydney says a combination. Okay, but I want you to think about, what does a 3-year-old do over and over when they want something? And you tell them no. And do they stop? They 100% do not stop. They are going to ask you again, and they're going to ask you again, and they're going to ask you again, and they're going to do whatever it takes, throwing themselves on the ground, crying, pleading, begging, all of it to get what they want. So Phil, the author, he argued that all of us were born with the ability to sell stuff, but what's interesting is that life trains it out of us over time. It just like gets rid of that part of it. And because when we're little, when we're 3, when we're 2, when we're 4, even my 8-year-olds, like they don't care if I tell them no. Like the word no doesn't scare them and it doesn't stop them from doing things. But at some point over our lives, we get scared to hear the word no. And so we stop asking questions because we don't want to hear no, right? Finish this sentence. If you don't ask, you don't, what? If you don't ask, you don't know. Yeah. You don't know, you don't receive, you don't get, right? And so we know that to be true. We've all been raised hearing that phrase. But often we don't ask for what we want in life because we don't know who to ask, we don't know when to ask it, and we don't know what to ask for, right? Phil argued that your success is in direct correlation to the quantity or the number of quality asks that you make of people. What is it that stops you from asking for the things that you want in life? What is it that stops you from asking people if they want to try plexus, or if they've heard of plexus, or if they're interested in making money with plexus? What stops you? For most people, and he said it was like anywhere he goes and he gives this talk, yes, fear of rejection. There's three top answers that he always gets: fear of rejection, there's fear, there's rejection, and there's fear of rejection. And those are the same 3 answers that he gets everywhere that we go. And that stops us from asking for the things that we want in life. So he kind of broke that down for us. So we're going to start by talking about rejection. Why are we so okay to accept rejection in our personal life, but we fear it in our professional life? Like, think about a time recently within the last week or couple of weeks where somebody in your personal life maybe rejected you. Like they said no to something that you asked them to do, or you invited them to do. You asked them to go to dinner, or to come over and hang out, or go for a walk, or whatever. And they said no, they couldn't. Right? Do we take that personally? Not typically from most people in our personal lives. And the reason is that we know that they're not saying no to us. They're saying no to it, right? Like they don't have time in their schedule, or they don't like that food, or maybe they don't have the money or whatever. We know they're saying no to it. It's not a personal thing. But for whatever reason, when it comes to our professional lives, we take that no personally. Like they're saying no to me. They don't want to use my plexus. And truly, it has nothing to do with us, but we use that. And then we create this whole fear of rejection, of them not liking us, not wanting what we have to offer because it's us. And that's just simply not true. Who here has spent money on something in the last 6 months that they never thought they'd spend money on a year ago? It could be something really simple. Maybe, yes, probably. I'm sure that we all have, right? You've spent money on something recently that you, like a year or a couple years ago, you never ever thought that you'd be spending money on. Why? Because a plane ticket. Yeah, exactly. Maybe a car. Maybe it's certain food you said you'd never buy. A wedding decor. Exactly. Clothes that you swore you would never ever get into that style or that fad or whatever. Exactly. Like Jamie said, because opinions change and our circumstances change, right? So just because somebody said, no, I'm not interested in what you have to offer, what you're sharing with me, 6 months ago, doesn't mean that today they don't want that or need that. So we have to keep that in mind. People's circumstances change all the time, and they will continue to change all the time. So when somebody said, no, thank you today, they could say pretty please tomorrow. Their health could change, their finances could change, maybe their medication changes, their circumstances change. And so if we stop asking because somebody said no once, we're missing out on so many opportunities to help other people with their health and with their finances because we just stopped going back to them, right? How many times maybe you get an invitation for something and you're like, I'm just not going to that. It's like a generic invitation on Facebook or maybe whatever, like a group message, you're just going to ignore it. But then somebody messages you individually and they're like, hey, I'd love to see you at that party. Are you going to be able to come? Yeah, I'll be there, right? Because sometimes we just need that personal touch. So maybe us just sharing on our stories, like that's great, but they're just like not engaging in that. But when you send somebody a message personally and they're like, you know what, I've been watching, I just was like not brave enough to reach out to you. I was scared to say something to you. I needed a little bit of a push, right? Sometimes people just need that. The next part of why people like start taking no for an answer and they stop like putting themselves out there is because of fear. All that, let's see. Oh, so Phil went on to like, he had this really funny thing, like how, you've seen like people break down fear and as an acronym, like FEAR, false evidence appearing real. And he's like, that's all BS because that's not how fear ever shows up in my life. Like it shows up and it feels real, right? He said, but in this industry, it's very different. And people take fear as F everything and run. And the whole room's laughing because it's hilarious. But it's true. But here's the thing, is the point that he was making is that, is there something that you're really, really good at now that once upon a time you were too scared to do? Maybe it's speaking. Like I hated speaking. I wouldn't say that I'm really, really good at it now, but I'm comfortable doing it now because years ago, I never would have done this, or I would have like done my whole hair and my makeup. And I'm like, you know what, here I am. Like, I'm just showing you guys, this is how we are. Things that you never really thought that you'd do. And that's because fear is the fertilizer of growth. When we start putting ourselves in those positions that are maybe a little bit fearful, that's when we're going to feel that growth. And if you're not afraid, if you're not doing scary things every day or every week, you're probably not growing. And that's just how it is. And people get to a point in their life where they don't want to be scared anymore, where they think, once I get to this age, I have to have everything all figured out, right? So I don't need to be scared anymore. And while I would love for that to be true, the truth is that we can kind of get just complacent where we are, content with where we are, which is fine, but you're also not growing if you're not getting outside of your comfort zone. Nobody has it all figured out, but the people that are brave enough to be scared enough are the ones that are going to take the biggest leaps and have the most success. Rejection is part of the game, and fear is the fertilizer of growth. And also remember that they're not saying no to you. People are saying no to not right now. It doesn't mean never, ever again. Don't ever message me again. So he gave us 4 cornerstones of conversational excellence. He's like the guru on conversations and just like changing words and having conversations with people. If you've never read his book, Exactly What to Say, I highly recommend it. It's really good, but I'm going to just give you some nuggets of information. And this is kind of like the why behind he has all of his whole book of what to say. The first point of conversational excellence is that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is the moment that you're saying it in. So planning ahead about what those conversations are going to look like, and maybe even like questions that you're going to be having with people. He said, obviously you can't go change all of your conversations with everybody all at once, but what are the critical conversations that you could pick, just small moments of conversations that you tweak that a little bit and it changes the whole trajectory. For example, like when your spouse comes home from work or when you come home from work, those 15 seconds of your first interactions with them are going to make or break the rest of your evening, right? It's that moment that you're going to focus on exactly what to say, and you're going to plan maybe ahead of time what you're going to say. And it's not going to be like, why didn't you pick up dinner on the way home? Like maybe that's not the best thing. And that's going to make or break the rest of your evening. So thinking about those conversations in your personal life where you can maybe plan some questions ahead of time, like, you're going out with your friends or whatever, you're going to plan some questions that you're going to ask them ahead of time. When it comes to your business, for example, maybe pick one part of the conversations that you're having with people that you feel like could really have big potential to grow your business. And we've been talking a lot about welcome calls with your new VIPs. And I feel like that's one place where you could tweak a little bit of what you're saying and how you're talking to people about, if you love your products, are you going to share about them? And changing the wording to that versus like not even talking to them at all about sharing about their products or getting their products paid for could change the whole trajectory of their experience as a customer and a VIP with you. So focusing on little parts in your conversations with people that can make a really big difference. Let's see. Number 2 was curiosity is the fuel to great conversation, not certainty. Take the time to understand somebody else's context. So if somebody messages you and they're like, I'm just so tired all the time and I can't get out of bed and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh my gosh, here's what you need. And you just send them over the welcome pack that you need. You're not taking the time to get curious about them and what's going on with them and relating to them. And you really miss the boat on establishing that connection and that relationship with them that you will want to have moving forward in your conversations. It's really hard to talk to somebody about their health and about how often they poop and about, like their bowels and their eating habits and their stomach and their sleep and all of those things if you don't have any sort of relationship with them. So get really curious when somebody is talking to you about or messaging you, and not even just about the products, but just in general, when you're having conversations with people, get curious about them, ask more conversations, slow down the process to speed up the outcome. Nobody wants to do what you're doing. Nobody wants to buy your products, and nobody wants to become a brand ambassador because he said, take time to figure out their because. Why is it that they're telling you no? Or why is it that they're telling you yes? I want to be a customer because. If you don't take time to figure out their because, you're not going to have that relationship with them in the future. A great way to do that is that feel, felt, found message. So I totally understand how you're feeling. I felt the same way because yada, yada, yada. Here's what I found has helped me when I was feeling that way, right? Learn the context before you push the content. We've all been in conversations with people, I'm sure, where it's like they ask you a question and you answer, but then they respond and they were actually just asking the question because they wanted to talk about something and they take over the whole conversation. So be curious in those conversations with people, and be prepared to ask more conversations. Number 3, people do things for their reasons and not yours. He said, and this is, I think, really important. Selling is earning the right to make a recommendation. You have earned the right because of the relationship and the conversation that you've had with the person to make a recommendation. You don't earn that based on like, hey, I'm super tired. Oh, here's a recommendation, right? Never invite someone to take action unless you can say first, because of the fact that you said you're so tired all the time and you can't get out of bed in the morning, then for those reasons, what I would recommend is the triplex combo and a bag of active, right? So say these words, because of the fact that you said blank, then for those reasons, I would recommend blank. If you show up this way, you'll have more influence with people. It's collecting the blanks that is challenging, but it's also what will build your relationships with those people and ultimately help you to be able to help them in the future. And then the last thing is remember that the person asking the question is in control of the conversation. The questions provide us context and they provide us evidence. The questions create conversations. Conversations lead to relationships. From relationships, you create opportunities with people. And then from those opportunities, you drive actual change. That's when you can ask them, hey, do you want to try this? How do you feel about this? Are you open to learning more about this combo, right? Who are the people that you need to be asking more questions of? I had a hard realization lately that I have not been asking good questions, and I haven't been growing relationships with people on social media. And so that is an area where I am really trying to focus my energy, is asking more questions, building more relationships, and having more conversations instead of just mindlessly scrolling whenever I get on there. And those conversations are going to open the doors to relationships that build trust and foster opportunity for them and for me, right? So ultimately, like, ask the first question and listen to what they're saying. And then ask another question about their answer. Tell me more about that. Slow down and listen. This thing that he said was really impactful for me too. When he said, they didn't ghost you, they just didn't know how to reply to your complicated question. Or maybe you never even asked a question to begin with. Like, maybe you sent them information about a product and then you didn't even end with any sort of question. You just said, here's the info on the triplex combo. What are they supposed to do with that? Or maybe you added way too much in there and it was a complicated question. And so they were like, I don't even know how to answer that. Like, I'm just not even going to say anything. Maybe they genuinely read your message and their kids were climbing on the roof and they forgot to come back to that conversation, and you just need to ask them again, right? So here are some different wording things that he suggested, and I can share these with you guys. I'll put them in the Wellbeing Society in the comments of that thread as well. So if you want to go back to somebody who you feel like you kind of just messed up that conversation with them previously, or you go back and you're like, ew, I can't believe I said that. Here's something that you could say. You could say, like, hey, Kayla, I know I came to you asking you to buy a bag of Slim to support my goal, and that probably really turned you off instead of making you interested. I am so sorry. And then you ask a question about them and their life. Are you still living in Michigan? Or are you still working at such and such place? Like, just be really open about, hey, I know I did blank. Or even one of your old customers, like, hey, I know I didn't follow up with you the way that I said that I would, and I'm so sorry for dropping the ball with my customer care. Are you still working at Toledo Hospital? Just like start a new conversation with them, right? Let's see, what else did he say? When somebody is talking to you and they're like, I just don't think that like now's the right time for me. I'm not interested in products. I love this wording change, where he's, you just kind of throw it back on them and you say like, okay, is it okay that change that you're looking for, like the energy that you really want isn't going to happen? Are you okay with that? And so that's another good wording tweak that you can say, like, I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly. Like, you're okay with not having the energy right now because it's not in your budget. Like, are you okay with that? And it's not to be rude. I would totally recommend doing that on voice message so they don't read that like snarky. Like, I'm not trying to be snotty about it, but at the same time, like, just making sure that they understand what's on the line and what they're missing out on when they're telling you no. And then the last thing that he said that I'm going to leave you guys with: people leave because they do not feel successful. Help them feel successful. And I think this to be true, like with the products and with the business. If you're not pointing out people's wins along the way and helping them see that maybe they didn't lose 15 pounds the first month, but they're sleeping better and they have more energy and their cravings are down and they don't need as much caffeine. Those are all wins. Help them realize that the products are working and they're successful. People leave because they don't feel successful. And the same is true with the business. So we have to be celebrating our wins with the business along the way. Maybe our points aren't where we want them to be, or our business builders' points aren't where we want them to be. But hey, they're showing up consistently on social media. And so we're going to recognize them for that because that's a big win. Or they're showing up during a really hard season in their life. And so we're going to recognize them for that win too. Help people on your team, your customers, and your business builders feel successful and feel important. And they're going to stick around no matter what. So that is all I have for you guys. I know that was kind of like all over the place, but again, that book was Exactly What to Say by Phil Jones. It's a super easy read if you're interested in just like some mind-blowing tweaks of the things that we say that we don't even realize, and how you can kind of turn that around into something that's like really makes people think. So last thoughts, questions, concerns before we wrap this up? Right. Thanks, you guys. Thanks again to Kayla for sharing your story for us tonight. And thanks to all of you who took time out of your evening to be on with us tonight. Have a good one, you guys.